to the channel and welcome to game 3 of my Age of Fantasy Skirmish solo play campaign. So this is a campaign of Age of Fantasy Skirmish, oddly enough, where I'm playing both warbands myself, and I'm not using the AI rules. I'm just trying to be as objective as I can when it comes to each individual activation of each turn. If you haven't seen the previous 2 videos, please go and check them out, because, spoiler alert, the warbands are currently at 2 victory points each. To quickly recap the warbands, on the left we've got Dribblesnot's Sneaky Gits, a goblin warband. They are led by Dribblesnot Flashbang, who is a cave shaman. We've got Swampy Stompy the forest troll, and we've got a unit of 3 cave archers, Gwang's Twang Gang. As a warband, in terms of development, they've done pretty well. Dribblesnot started the campaign with an upgrade, so he started with Wizard 2. I purchased that for him with the 150 points that you're allowed to start the campaign with. Since then, he's developed the upgrades of Headstrong, which gives him +1 to morale tests, and also Duelist, which makes him -1 to hit in melee. Swampy Stompy the forest troll, he earned an upgrade in the last game, which is Specialist in melee, so he gets +1 to hit in melee. But other than that, the warband is more or less the same as when the campaign started. On our right, we have the War Disciples warband, known as the Beasts That Hunger. They are led by Havoc the Exalted, and Havoc has actually got worse since the campaign started, because in the first game he got a chest wound, which gives him -1 to save rolls. They lost a member of their party. They lost Trull, one of their Gore Reavers. However, they have since recruited a Death Reaper by the name of Gareth the Skull Splitter. But in terms of other upgrades for the warband, there aren't any. They're pretty much the same as when they started the campaign. But we're only 2 games in. This is going to be game 3. Now the Goblins are only more or less the same in terms of their construction of their warband and the units that are in it, because one of the original unit of archers got killed and had to be replaced. And for the Beasts That Hunger, as I say, one of the Gore Reavers got killed and has been replaced with a Death Reaper. Now, the points value of the warbands has changed. So Dribblesnot Sneaky Gits is currently worth 160 points, mainly by virtue of the upgrades for Dribblesnot and Swampy Stompy. The points value of the Beast That Hunger is now 180 points by virtue of the acquisition of Gareth the Skull Splitter. So the Goblins are going to get 2 underdog points that can be used at some point during the game. An underdog point can be used to modify a dice roll by +1 or -1, and it can be either their own or the enemy's. So they'll be able to do that twice in the game, but they can't spend both on the same dice roll. So they can't give a dice roll +2 or -2. They can only modify it up or down by 1, and then another dice roll up or down by 1. Now before we get started on the mission, we need to roll for special objectives. So we've got green dice for the Goblins, red, black and brass dice for the War Disciples. So both have got 3, which is casting, and that is at least 1 attempt cast or block spells per round. Now that's possible for the Goblins because they've got a wizard. However, it's not possible for the War Disciples because they do not have a wizard. So I get to re-roll the 3, and that's a 5. So Rage, the first player to knock out an enemy unit. And I think that's what they both had last time. They both had those special objectives last time. Okay, well, who am I to argue with the dice gods? So let's go into the mission. Okay, so we're set up. We've got 4 objectives, and they are spaced 16 inches from any battlefield edge and from each other. So nicely evenly spaced. The battlefield itself I've tried to make as symmetric as possible so that one side doesn't necessarily have a scenery advantage over the other. And obviously these 4 objectives, these clusters of green crystals, have historically given some kind of power to the area. So some arcane masters of yore have constructed this spiral staircase going up to the top of this edifice. Is edifice the right word? Tall bit. Goblins won the roll for deployment, and they have deployed obviously closest to me. And this time we've got Swampy Stompy in the centre, the intention being that he can go to either side, whichever needs the most support. We've got Dribble Snot on the left and Gwang's Twang Gang over on the right. And for the War Disciples, they've got a Gore Reaver and a Gore Warrior in each flank, so they're split into two effectively. And we've got the Death Reaper on the left as we look at the screen, and Havoc the Exalted, the leader of the Warband, on their left, our right. Now, as I say, the Goblins won the roll-off, so they will get first activation in the first turn. At the start of turn 1 is going to be a random event. We have not had one so far in any of the games played. I talked that up, didn't I? Right, so on a 5 or a 6, yes there is. So I'm going to do, you now roll a D66. So I'm going to use the purple dice for the 10s, green for the units. Not that it really mattered. 44. Okay, so 44 is Opportunist. The first time during this round, when a unit knocks out a stunned by charging it in melee, it receives +1 XP. Okay, I think the chances of our first random event of the campaign actually having an impact on the game are pretty slim. For the first activation of the game, the Goblin Cave Archers, Gwang's Twang Gang, have advanced forwards onto that objective, and they're not quite in range of an enemy target yet to be shooting their short bows at. In response, Strack the Gore Reaver has advanced forwards onto objective 1. Now, part of the problem the Goblins have is they've only got 3 units, whereas the War Disciples have got 6. So yeah, the Goblins are not really in that much a position to be reacting to what the War Disciples do. Swampy Stompy has rushed forwards on the Goblins' right flank, and Greekar has mirrored Strack's move by advancing onto this objective in this corner. Dribble Snot has advanced and keeping within 3 inches of this objective. Now, he hasn't got an enemy unit within 12 inches for any offensive spells, so he's going to cast Spider's Might on Swampy Stompy, and this has got a casting value of 4+. He's Wizard 2, so it'll go off on a 2+, and that succeeds on a 6. So now Swampy will get the poison rule in melee next time he fights, and I've just put a blue dice next to Swampy on the 3 side, just to remind myself that next time he fights he gets poison, and poison is any unmodified 6s to hit count as 3 hits. And with all the Goblin units now activated, I can carry on with the rest of the War Disciples activations, and basically the remaining 4 units have just simply rushed forwards. Now, the Goblins got to be feeling a little bit nervous right now, because there's now lots of War Disciples in charge range, but that will be the end of turn 1, and at the end of turn 1 each warband is holding 2 objectives each. So going into turn 2, so at the start of turn 2 we roll for a random event, so the one from the previous turn doesn't carry over because it only counted for that previous turn. So far the only random event we've had in the entire campaign has not had any kind of effect on the game whatsoever. Right, so let's roll a die. On a 5 or a 6 we get a random event. Nope, seem to roll a lot of 4s for random events. Anyway, the Goblins finished activating first in the previous turn, so they'll get to activate first in this turn. And now I've got a decision to make, because every single Goblin unit, all 3 of them, are being threatened by charging nastiness. So I need to decide, do I want to do something with Dribble Snot first? Do I want to do something with Swampy Stompy first, or do I want to do something with the Cave Archers first? I'll get back to you on that. Okay, for the first activation, I think I'm going to activate Dribble Snot. I did think about activating Swampy first on the basis that Dribble Snot is -1 to hit in melee, but Swampy has got A, a better save, and B, has got regeneration. So I think Dribble Snot is going to cast Glare on Grareth, the Skull Splitter. So casting value of 4, Wizard 2, so he gets +2 to this dice roll, which passes on another 6. Now this is an automatic hit at AP -2 and Deadly 3, so Death Reapers have got a 4-up save, so that'll be a natural 6 to save. And that's cocked. It looks like it would be a 6, but every time it doesn't land flat on the table, I do re-roll it. And I've done that before when it looks like it's been going to be a success. So let's see if fortune favours the honest. No, it doesn't. So that would be 3 wounds on Grareth. Does he get knocked out on a 5 or a 6? Yes, he does. New model syndrome. So Grareth, the Death Reaper, the newest member of the army, gets knocked out with the first hit of the game. Couldn't really be anything else for the first Beasts That Hunger activation of the turn. Havoc is going to charge Swampy Stompy. Havoc gets 5 attacks on the charge, 4 attacks for his halberd +1 for Furious, and he'll be hitting on 3s. And that's 3 hits, no 6s. 6s would be Rending, which would ignore Swampy's regeneration, and also be AP -3 or 4, I forget, it doesn't really matter right now. So this will be 5-up saves on a troll. So none of those save, but we do get 5-up regeneration. And one of those regenerates, so that puts 2 wounds onto Swampy, which is good because that means he's not at risk of being stunned or knocked out yet, so he can retaliate. Well, I say good, it's good from Swampy's point of view, it's not so good from Havoc's point of view. So Swampy gets 3 attacks, hitting on 3s now because he's now a specialist in melee, so +1 to his dice rolls. And he still has poison, so that 6 counts as 3 hits, and the 3 is a hit as well. Swampy's big club is AP 1, so ordinarily a Lord of War gets a 3-up save, but he's got a chest wound which makes it a 4-up save, and AP -1 makes it a 5-up save. So 4 5-up saves needed. And he makes 1, so he takes 3 wounds, which is potentially enough to stun him or knock him out. On a 5 or 6 he'll be knocked out. Okay, so that happened. And of course the War Disciples, their special objective was to be the first warband to knock out an enemy unit, and so far they've had 2 of their own units knocked out, so they're not achieving that. On to Dribble Snot Sneaky Git's next activation. Now got a little bit of a conundrum, because it's either going to be Swampy Stompy or it's going to be Gwang's Twang Gang. Swampy has already fought in combat, so he's going to be hitting on unmodified 6s now, and I'm torn between charging him onto that objective and see if we can't take out that Gore Reaver, or see if we can't charge this Gore Warrior to try and protect the Cave Archers a little bit. I think we need to play aggressive and charge the Gore Reaver. So Swampy has now charged, and he's now within 3 inches of that objective, so he will be contesting it. So he gets 3 attacks, hitting on unmodified 6s because he's already fought in combat. And there's 1 6. So this will be a 6-up save. Ordinarily a 5-up for a Gore Reaver, but Swampy's big club is AP 1. And that fails. So the Gore Reaver takes a wound. Is he knocked out? No. But he is stunned, because that'll become a 2. So that Gore Reaver gets stunned. And we roll the die, and on a 4-up, Swampy can kick him out of the way. Yep, we can kick him out of the way. And strictly speaking, Swampy has to fall back an inch because he was the charging unit and he did not take out his opponent. And I just realised I placed an activation token next to that Gore Reaver, and I shouldn't have done because he hasn't activated yet. On to the War Disciples. I've got a couple of choices now. I can either activate the Gore Reaver and stand him up, because at the moment he is stunned and lying down, which means if the cave archers shoot at him and hit him, he's automatically KO'd. So it'd probably be a good idea to stand him up. Or do I activate the Gore Warrior to charge the cave archers so that we're threatening that objective and potentially take them out? Or do we charge the troll and see if we can't take him out because he's on 2 wounds? I think the prudent thing to do is stand up the Gore Reaver so he can't be automatically KO'd. So he will simply stand up and be marked as activated, which now means it's onto the Goblins, and the Goblins are going to shoot at him. So this will be 3 shots hitting on 5s, and that's 1 hit. I'm going to use one of the underdog bonuses to turn that into a 5, so that's 2 hits, and these will be 5-up saves. Neither of them pass, so that's two more wounds on the Gore Reaver, so he might get knocked out anyway at this rate. So he's on 3 wounds. 3 plus 4 is 7. Yep, he's now knocked out anyway. So that now makes it a bit easier for what the War Disciple is going to do next. That Gore Warrior is going to charge the troll because he is now threatening that objective, and if we don't take care of it, then yeah, the Goblins are going to be on 3 objectives at the end of the turn. So the Gore Warrior has charged. He gets 3 attacks hitting on 3s. And that one is cocked. Would have been a 2, but again, wasn't flat, so we'll re-roll it. So that is 3 hits. And I think I'm going to use my last underdog bonus to turn that 3 into a 2, so it becomes 2 hits. So this will be 5-up saves. Saves 1. And 5-up regeneration. And that fails. So Swampy takes 1 wound, which puts him on 3, and he'll be knocked out on a 5 or a 6. Oh, that's a 5 plus 3 is 8. So Swampy is knocked out. And that just leaves these 2 beasts who hunger over on this side. We'll start things off with the Gore Reaver, who is simply going to rush forwards. And then the Gore Warrior, Greg the Howler, is going to charge Dribblesnot. Greg will get 3 attacks, hitting on 4s because Dribblesnot is a duelist. And that is only 1 hit. Saves on a 6. Doesn't save. Dribblesnot takes 1 wound, but he's tough 3. Dribblesnot can hit back using 1 attack, hitting on a 5, which misses. So then Greg has to fall back an inch. Now then, it's the end of the turn, and the beasts that hunger are once again down to half their starting strength, so morale tests need to be taken. So we'll start on the left and work across. So starting with Greekar, the Gore Reaver here. He needs a 4+. That's a 1. So he will run away. Greg the Howler needs a 3+. He will run away. And then finally, Kerulk, the Berserk. He's okay, he's staying on a 6. So that is now the end of a very eventful turn 2. Who needs random events when you get turns that are as eventful as that? So the War Disciples, the Beast That Hunger, I've got 1 model left. The Goblins lost their most powerful fighter, their Troll, but they are still holding 2 objectives, and the War Disciples still technically hold 2 objectives as well. So going into turn 3, this is going to be interesting. At the start of turn 3, is there going to be a random event? No, yet another 4. When it comes to the laws of probability, I've yet to come across a set of dice that aren't anarchists. The goblins finished activating first in the previous turn, so they will get to activate first in this turn. And I think we're going to start with Dribblesnot, who's going to rush over this way and try and cast Gaze. And by that, of course, I mean Glare on that last remaining beast that hungers. So as we know by now, Glare will go off on a 2+. And that's a 4. So this will be a 5-up save, because it's 1 automatic hit at AP2, and Keralt the Berserk has got a 3-up save usually. Ah, that fails. So that's deadly 3, so Keralt takes 3 wounds. And that's 5 + 3 is 8, so Keralt is knockout. And with that, we may as well call the game there, because there's now nothing to stop the goblins just simply getting onto another objective by the end of turn 4, which will give them the majority of the objectives and therefore win the game. Right, the spoils of war, the mission goals. The goblins win 2 victory points and 10 points to spend on their warband because they won. The beasts that hunger get 0 victory points but do get 30 points to spend on their warband. The goblins managed to achieve their special objective by casting or trying to cast a spell in every turn. However, the beasts that hunger do not, so the goblins will get an extra 10 points to spend on their warband, whereas the beasts that hunger don't get any bonuses. On to casualties. We'll start with Swampy Stompy. So we'll roll the dice. On a result of 1, poor Swampy will be dead. On a 6, he's a natural talent and will recover with an extra XP. On a 2 to 5, he just simply recovers. I'll be quite upset if this is a 1, if I'm perfectly honest. No, he's good. It's a 2. Right, we'll do Havoc last because he's a hero, so slightly different process for him. So we'll start at this end now. So we'll start with Strack, the Gore Reaver. No, he's good. Keralt the Berserk is good. Gareth the Skull Splitter, he's good. And now Havoc, he's good. So no fatalities as a result of that battle. However, because these guys were KO'd during the battle, they will not earn an experience point for surviving. So technically they survived because they just got knocked out. But again, that's the way I'm interpreting it. If you get knocked out during the game, technically you haven't survived that particular battle, so you don't get an XP. However, Greg the Howler and Greekar, the Gore Reaver, the way I'm playing this is, technically I'm classing them as having survived the game because yes, they ran away as a result of a morale test, but he who fights and runs away lives to survive another day. So on that basis, I'm saying they get an XP for surviving the game. Don't know if that's the way you're supposed to do it, but it's the way I'm doing it in this campaign. Because the rules around experience just say if they survived. So the way I'm playing it is, they didn't get knocked out. So if you don't get knocked out, you get an XP for surviving the game. Keralt the Berserk knocked out an enemy unit, poor old Stompy up there, so he gets an XP. And for the beasts that hunger, that means that Greekar, that Gore Reaver, and also Greg the Howler, they're both now on 4 XP, so 1 more XP each, and they'll get an upgrade. For the goblins, the Cave Archers, Gwang's Twang Gang, they got a KO, they knocked out an enemy unit, and they survived the battle, so they get 2 XP, which puts them up to 3. So they're still not quite an upgrade yet, they need 2 more XP to upgrade. However, Dribblesnot Flashbang knocked out 2 enemy units and survived the battle, so he gets 3 XP, that puts him on 10, so every 5 XP you get an upgrade, so Dribblesnot is going to get another upgrade. Swampy Stompy knocked out an enemy unit, and that enemy unit was the enemy leader. Now again, the way I'm doing this is, you get 1 point for each of the categories that apply. So he knocked out an enemy unit, that's 1 point, and that it's coincidence that that enemy unit happened to be the leader. You get 2 points for knocking out a leader, 1 point for knocking out an enemy unit. So I'm saying that's 3 XP, and that puts Swampy on 12. So again, I'm not entirely sure if that's the way you're supposed to do it, but that's the way I am doing it, and as long as I'm consistent throughout the campaign, I don't think it makes a lot of difference. Plus, more XP means more upgrades, which makes it more interesting, to my mind anyway. Right, let's sort out what upgrades they get. Right, we'll start with Swampy because he's the most straightforward. We simply roll a die, and that's a 4, which is resilient, so he gets +1 to rolls when blocking hits, so effectively +1 save rolls. That's good because his save is currently 5+, so saving on 4+, as long as the weapon hasn't got a rend or AP, then yeah, that's going to make him a bit more survivable. That's good, I like that. Now for Dribblesnot, it's a little bit more confusing, so I'm hoping I'm doing this right. So the way I'm reading the campaign rules is he levels up like a normal unit, and he also gets a we roll to see what skill trait he gets for the skill set that he's got. So when he leveled up initially, he got a regular trait because that's the way the rules say. Whereas it follow the same rules as above, so as per a regular unit, and the first time a hero levels up, roll 1 die and pick 1 skill set. So the skill set he went for was Fighter. And then it says underneath that, every time the hero levels up, including the first time, roll 1 die to see what skill trait it gets, and it becomes 5 points more expensive. Oh yes, Swampy is 5 points more expensive as well because he's leveled up. But yeah, getting back to Dribblesnot, each trait can only be gained once. So the way I'm reading this is, the way I'm interpreting is, he gets to roll on the regular traits and the skill traits. That's the way I'm reading it. So effectively he will become 10 points more expensive because he gets a regular trait and a skill trait. That's the way I'm understanding it. If I'm wrong, somebody please correct me in the comments, but that's the way I'm doing it. Right, so let's roll for his regular trait, which is a 4, resilient, +1 to rolls when blocking hits. So same as Swampy. And then for the fighter skill set, he's already got duelist, which is a 1 or a 2. So on a 1 or a 2 we re-roll. That's another 4. That's 3 4s in a row. Right, so he's a fanatic. He gets +1 attack when in melee. Okay, that's pretty cool. And he's now 10 points more expensive. On to upgrades and recruitment. Neither of the warbands have purchased any upgrades for existing units, but the goblins have managed to recruit a cave beast. So that leaves them with 15 points left over. The beasts that hunger, they haven't recruited anybody. They're keeping their points just in case they need to replace any units later on. So that was game 3 of the campaign. I hope you enjoyed it. It felt a bit frantic in places, but yeah, it was certainly eventful, albeit most of the events taking place in turn 2. But yeah, interesting nonetheless. Please continue to like, comment and subscribe, and continue to follow me in the campaign. And until next time, God bless.